Hey everybody, welcome to the GameSpace Game Show. I am your host, Steven, and I've got our lovely regulars here. We have Shank. Hey Shank, how are you doing?
Good, how are you guys, man?
We have the legend, Chris, our hardware editor.
Hi, good to see you guys.
And back by popular demand is Dame.
Hello.
And we have quite an amazing show today. We've got a lot to talk about. One of those things happens to be how much everybody hates EA, which is a very popular topic, loved by everyone, strangely enough. But before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about something that I personally like to talk about, and that is revenue. Who doesn't like revenue?
Ooh, gotta get them sweet dollar bills. Money. Every time you say dollar bill, I want to break into song. That dollar bill, y'all. That song from a few years ago. Every time.
That's kind of what we were hoping that you would do. Half the show is just going to be Chris performing. I want to see some dancing. I want to see it all. So before we get started, I also kind of wanted to put out there that we are not stupid.
Speak for yourself, Steve.
Well, of all
I make
of
no
us,
promises.
I'm probably the most stupid. But I wanted to throw out there a little disclaimer. The revenue report that we're getting, the information that we're getting is from SuperData. I know that there are a lot of people out there who have very interesting takes on what SuperData does. But still, I believe personally, and I would like to talk to you guys about this as well, I personally believe that the data is about as accurate as we're going to get, because a lot of these companies are also private companies. They don't have calls talking about how much they've sold or anything like that. So the data that we're getting information on is not maybe the most accurate. We understand that, we know that, but on the other hand,
it's what we have to go on, people.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much.
We're working on a shoestring budget here.
Now, the one thing I would like to know, because SuperData is a reputable source. People are looking at this all over the industry. But do they include digital downloads?
That was literally my next question.
Digital downloads. So that is something. Let me go back and read this disclaimer here that we set up, because it tells you kind of what the information is that where they're getting their information. So create custom query. This is just basically them talking about what they have the capabilities of doing. So it does not say specifically that they're getting their information from digital downloads, but it's talking about the digital games market. Does that count? Does that do anything for you, Chris?
If they're talking about the market, they must be including it. They would have to. I'm going to do a little research while we're talking.
Well, I would say that they probably are, because, and I don't know. I know that PUBG is one of the games that they talk about a lot, but there are other games, specifically like the mobile market. You know, the mobile market, there's no physical sales, so you know, especially whenever they talk about games like Pokemon Go, you're not talking about, you know, box sales or sales of the actual, you're talking about, you know, digital purchases, because that's a free-to-play game, and a lot of what they're talking about are free-to-play games. So I was
just about to point that out. Yep.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I think it is counting the digital stuff.
From what I'm looking at here, it does look like they include that. Just some quick research.
Excellent. So those people out there who were saying otherwise, you know, those naysayers. Well, they
okay.
All
right, hold
shut
on.
up.
So it says, reading the top titles list. The top titles list show the most recent month of total digital revenues, e.g. console titles include full game digital download revenues plus DLC/additional content revenues. It does not say that for PC. Well, it would have to include that for PC, because nobody's buying discs for PC anymore.
I don't even think they have discs for PC.
I don't even have a disc drive in my chassis. Like
that is a great. Can I give you an anecdote? I had to buy Windows, right? I had to rebuy Windows for a machine. I was so frustrated that I couldn't get the disk because I keep that thing in case I ever need it, and they wanted to send me a USB drive. That was extremely frustrating. That was a wake-up call for me that apparently I'm antiquated, friends. Come on, Microsoft. Deal with an old man here. I'm 31 and I'm behind the times.
Well, at least you weren't asking it for at least you weren't asking for it on floppy diskette.
Dude, I talked to a manager and everything, and I felt really foolish afterwards because I talked to this guy. I'm like, you mean to tell me you don't have one CD or DVD CD of Windows 10 at your place that I could buy? He's like, I'm sorry, sir. No, we do not. You must buy a USB drive. I'm like, let me talk to your manager. And then we got to the end of it, and I was completely in the wrong and felt very guilty for my frustration with this man. Anyways, that's my anecdote.
But you really need to begin that anecdote with "Stay a while and listen."
Well, I have a cane somewhere around here. Maybe I can shake that.
Let me tell you of the story of when I tried to buy Windows on a CD.
Chris is gonna walk around now and just call everybody Nephilim.
Yeah.
You know, actually, now that we're talking about it, I'm pretty sure Dame was supposed to be wearing a Monster Hunter costume, and I was supposed to be a monster. I think that I think that was supposed to be, you know, because of Monster Hunter. Oh, so
that explains the crab head.
I have swords in the background. You just weren't that threatening, so I decided to go with the cloth.
I have that, which is what I'm playing Monster Hunter on. Does that count?
A little, I guess. You know, I mean, I'm still disappointed, but less so now, I guess.
Well, when you're talking about wearing about 40 pounds worth of chainmail linked, linked rings, yeah, I thought it would be a little bit noisy for the podcast, because every single time that I would shift my weight, you'd hear.
I want to know who told you were allowed to go with the newbie armor set. If you're wearing chainmail, you are not nearly far enough in your monster hunting career.
That's true.
I expect all bone all the time.
See, this goes to show you how much. See, I've been so busy playing a different game that I haven't gotten into Monster Hunter yet, and I don't know that I will.
Where's the disconnect?
That you will ever.
Hold on.
Guys,
shut
can we have a sidebar real quick?
Shut him down.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it, Shank.
What? No, I was just gonna say, can we have a sidebar real quick and just like mute up Dame?
Yeah, Dame's like, go for it. Meanwhile, everyone else is like, he's done. Get him out of here. He can come back next time.
I'm sorry, guys. I was put on probation last week, and this is what happens.
Absolutely.
Steven, take it away. We're off the reins.
No, that's how I like it. So we're gonna start with a breakdown of revenue. You know what I like about this, because and for all these people who haven't watched the show, we have a treat for you. We have pie charts. We have bar graphs. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that really gets me excited. But let's go into the interactive entertainment generated 108.4 billion with a B in revenues in 2017. This is talking about last year, not this year, obviously. Come on, guys, get with it. The big thing for me is that the mobile games combined ended up making more money than PC, console, esports, the video content, and I mean basically everything combined, and VR combined. So that kind of tells you where the money is. So
yeah, I was gonna say, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go
But
for it.
I'm not terribly surprised by that, to be honest with you, because there's think about it this way. So why, if you look at the AAA games market last year specifically, what really happened? Like, I honestly consider 2017 the year of the loot box, and it's precisely because they brought over the mobile revenue strategies into the mainstream gaming market, and that's where the whole loot box thing blew up. They were treating premium priced games as they were treating mobile games, and it's no surprise they would, because it's so lucrative in the mobile business. So that kind of that's why, to me, like, I'm not that surprised that like the mobile is just completely outstrips everything in terms of revenues, because they clearly have practices in there that very clearly worked, and that they brought them over to the mainstream premium games market in 2017, and we saw how that blew up in their face with like everything that's happening. So I'm honestly not too surprised.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that one, Shank. And the other thing that's not surprising about this as well is that if you think about it from this perspective, the consumers that have a smartphone in their pocket are not the same consumers that have a gaming PC or a console in their household. So you could have family with 2.5 children and white picket fence, whatever, that all have, some type of tablet device. And you have, 4.5 devices in a household that, that have the potential to have some type of game to generate revenue for their platform. And then you get into like the whole like free to play market or freemium market, where you have the, oh, well, I want to keep playing, so I want to speed up the thing in my game, so I'm going to buy whatever the loot box or the in-game currency or whatever that goes along with that. And, or that you have those other instances where the kid accidentally purchases, the in-app currency or buys stuff in the game,
kid accidentally purchases.
Yeah. Accidentally.
That's how I get away with it. I don't have kids, but I was like, the kid did it. The kid accidentally purchased it.
What do you mean? You spent $10,000 in the Kim Kardashian game?
Meanwhile, that's actually Steven's fiance, and he's in the bathroom talking to him. So, like, honey, are you okay? Hold on a second, dear. I'm just going over something with our kid. I told you to stay out of that Kardashian game. But she's beautiful, Dad.
What is this Kardashian game? Is there a Kardashian game that I am not aware of? This is
dude.
It's like 36 of them by this point.
Jeez. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it runs on CryEngine.
It would. But yeah, I
appreciated the double entendre of that.
Yeah, very much so. I see what you guys are saying. Obviously mobile, I mean, you can't really discount what they're doing. And I really think it's interesting the way that it's going, the year of the loot box, as you call it. But on the other hand, I mean, the way that they are kind of trying to make mobile games these days is, a lot of it, is ad revenue. A lot of the free games nowadays do have a lot of ads that they're pushing, and then of course to all the other players out there who are primarily PC gamers. I mean, PC still had a pretty good year. 33 billion is what they came out with, which, I mean, it's nothing to shake a stick at, but I would say that the PC master race, we're not seeing, the kind of games that are going to be bringing over. I mean, they're different kinds of games, but I mean, are you really going to be seeing a lot of that cross-platform play, that cross-platform spending in the long term? I mean, I think right now what you're getting is a lot of the, the average players, the Candy Crush people. Another statistic that they give in the report is that I think it's like the top 30%, what is it, 30% of the revenue is by the top 10 games. Let me see if I could find that exact, but I mean, 10 games basically run, I mean, nearly a third of the revenue. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to find out what those top 10 games were, because if they don't have some sort of microtransaction scheme, I would be completely shocked, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah. So, I mean, and that kind of circles back to, well, it worked on mobile, so let's transplant that business model over onto the other premium platforms. So the other thing that we got to keep in mind with PC, because it's 33 billion versus 8.3 billion that I'm seeing here for console, is that PC, like you kind of touched on, yeah, it includes games, like PUBG and whatever else, but it also includes probably like, how do they include Facebook gaming like on there, like games that people just play on Facebook and like these other casual games, because those are the games that really do like rake in a ton of money.
What I'm really curious of as well is what would that figure look like without the Steam sale?
That's
I mean,
true.
like if we were not counting like discounts and stuff in that revenue, and I realize that's like I know how revenue works, but but I would be really, really curious like what that statistic would look like if those sales were not a part of that.
You know, you make a good point there, Dame, because I think one of the reasons why we see, well, there's really two reasons why I think mobile is doing so much better than everyone else, is the games there are so cheap. I mean, an expensive game is $10, right? So it enters into that impulse buy territory much more easily. And the same thing applies to Steam sales, as things get discounted so much, and it's like, oh, well, I wouldn't buy that game at $35, but would I buy it at $7.50? Yeah, which is why you have all these people that have massive Steam backlogs, myself included. I mean, because once it crosses a certain like mental threshold, it's easier to pull the trigger on it. And on top of that, we're not all walking around with gaming PCs or consoles in our pocket. You know, like the value of being able to take this thing everywhere makes it a whole lot easier to spend a couple dollars here and there, which is an advantage other consoles just don't have.
Yeah. No, I would agree. It's really the convenience factor, honestly.
Yeah.
Bringing it back around, I did go ahead and throw those games up there for you, Shank. The top 10 games control 20% of the revenue. And then it says Asian publishers dominate the mobile scene, with the top 3 titles alone earning over $4.5 billion in 2017. So again, this is mobile revenue, mobile games. I mean, I find it interesting because, I mean, I've played some of these games. I'm really surprised on Lineage 2. I think the Lineage 2 Revolution, we had somebody review that for us, didn't they? It wasn't one of you guys, was it?
No, I think it might have been David.
It was David, yeah. And Pokemon Go also, I mean, that's been out for a while. It still looks like it's going strong, and Candy Crush. I mean, that now it's not quite, it's not quite 1/3 like I was thinking, but I mean, that's still a lot of revenue just on the top 10 games. And go ahead.
You know what I noticed about these, though? If you leave that up, we have Tencent, NetEase, Supercell, Netmarble, King, Niantic, however you pronounce that, NetEase. These are gigantic companies. One of the truisms about mobile success is you have to put an incredible amount of money into marketing. So they make a ton of money, but the mobile space is so inundated with crap, it's hard to find the good games. So like one of the things that happens if you talk to marketers is if you actually want to even get noticed in the mobile space, you have to provide sometimes double your game development budget just for marketing to rise above. And that's why you have these gigantic companies making up the most revenue, is because they can afford to market and keep themselves up there. Whereas, you know, games that conceivably could be better would never make that list ever. So it's a double-edged sword. Like, they're making tons of money. That is also a market that is just filled with failures and games that are not worth your time. And honestly, it's a market of broken dreams, guys. Is my point here. Because, like, seriously, a lot of people, they want to get into game dev, they learn how to code, they get into the mobile space, and they find out, well, oh my gosh, there are a million other games literally trying to do what I'm doing, and no one will ever notice.
Or their cookie cutter using assets from existing games.
You see that so often. Often there are games that are just mirror images of one another with some different art assets sometimes. Sometimes even extremely similar. I mean, I've played games that were just like, they use the same basic models and they'll change the colors or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's mobile is oversaturated with tons of junk right now. And you know, how can you really combat it? But on the other hand, I mean, the revenue's there, so it makes sense. I mean, if you just happen to create that kind of game that, you know, that garners enough people to give it a try, for all you know, you could be, you know.
See, but I don't think that's possible. I think that is like winning the lottery, because there are so many things out there I mean, how do you even get noticed unless you have like thousands or millions of dollars to put into actually getting your game noticed? Websites out there, even like ours, we don't pay attention to that stuff because there's a million of them. So like you have to dump a ton of money into it. That's why studios making mobile games are at such an incredible disadvantage. And this is also like tying into like the PC space. This is what people are worried about happening to Steam with early access, is because they like there's a ton of money to be made and Steam is incentivized to make all that money by opening the doors like these markets. But because there is no curation in a place like the Google Play Store or the App Store, you just get all of these games and it destroys the overall market to where there's only a handful of actual winners in that. So it's a little bit off topic because I know you wanted to respond to that. But honestly, I think if you're getting into making a game nowadays, mobile is not the place to do it. And not unless you're going to destroy your game with ads.
And, Chris, you made a really, really interesting point about marketing money, pushing apps. One of the things that's really intriguing to me on this list is number 8. And somebody actually in our chat had talked about boo, down with Candy Crush. What's really funny about that is, like, in 2017, we had the Emoji Movie, which was pretty much the largest ad for Candy Crush that ever existed.
Yes.
And there's actually a fantastic video on that. If you go onto YouTube, the Theorist channel, I believe Film Theory, they did either Game Theory or Film Theory. Matt Pat did a fantastic video on the Emoji Movie and on advertising and stuff like that. And it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that movie was like just one giant ad for King. And so it really intrigues me that is number 8 on the list. And I wonder, like, is it number 8 because of that, or would it have not even made the list if that wasn't even a thing? Like, garbage movie aside.
I mean, that is a good point. That is a good point because, like he's saying, it's marketing, a lot of marketing. But, I also, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say Chris is wrong because
you're just not going out on a limb, man.
Let me just say that I just spent the last minute that Chris was talking looking on the Play Store at just a few different games. I don't know a lot of the names of, the mobile developers, but what I did notice is that there are a lot of crap games out there with a lot of tons of downloads. So I mean, I'm not saying that you're absolutely correct. There's games out there that fail daily. I mean, just failure games over and over again. But the reason why I think developers are really pushing the mobile space so much more now is because the success doesn't have to be overly successful for them to be successful enough. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I might be able to get, maybe a couple 100,000 downloads if I make a game that's being pushed on the Play Store as being similar to, a Candy Crush or or a Lineage or something like that. It's something that's close enough to it. Will garner enough people to look at it, enough advertisement revenue that it kind of makes enough money to keep development going or to make something else, just to get something else on the market and get that download.
Fair. And there's something that's sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was just repeating the words. That's fair.
Okay. Just kind of anecdotal in here too. I mean, the other thing that's really kind of interesting about the mobile game market is that, and this is, again, one of those things that kind of anecdotal may get us into the weeds here, but a couple of years ago, my dad retired. And one of the things that he's done in his retirement is actually started to learn coding for apps. And so it's one of those things where you have this possibility, where people have, access to classes and stuff like that online, where they can go through a course, learn how to build something and, put it out there and see what happens. I mean, that was for him, it's not he has no scheme to make money or anything like that. It's just kind of one of those hey, I'm trying to keep myself busy in retirement. This is interesting. And, hey, if I make a couple of dollars on it, then great. It's extra money that I didn't have before.
Right. Yeah. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I don't want to discourage anybody from trying to make an app, because there's absolute value in doing it. But it's harder to get noticed. Is the overarching point. I think you have a better chance of getting, if your goal is to actually get noticed and to get money, I think you have a better chance of that on other services, like essentially on PC.
I like where that was. I like where you went with that, because originally it was like, if you're gonna make a game, don't make it on mobile. But I don't want you to get discouraged, because
you're going to fail.
All right, maybe I did intend for some discouragement, but it was out of love. Okay. I don't want broken dreams. What I want is people fulfilled, making things to make them happy. And if you want to make, if it's going to make you happy to make something on mobile, go for it and learn a skill set.
Just don't make a piece of crap, though.
Just go ahead and be a failure if that's what you want to do. Be happy with it.
For the love of all that's holy, don't put fruit in it. It's been done. Okay, that's all.
What about candy? Can I put candy?
No, not unless you want to get sued.
Having fruit in a mobile game, honestly, is basically no different than having a first-person survival game with zombies on Steam. Like,
that's true.
And nudity. You have to remember that. Those survival games, typically you can strip right down to your bears, and people do. So, there are just staples of these genres. Which, coincidentally, if you go into certain spaces in the mobile realm, I'm told that's also something you can do on a cell phone. Never been there, but I'm told. Oh, no one has a comment for that?
Just going to let it hang out there.
We're going to let it die.
I'm lying through my teeth, by the way. You're going to leave me out there to dry. What friends you guys are. Steven, take us to the next topic, please.
I'm made on this the next topic. We all moved on without you. We left you there. And we just walked along.
I can tell. It's like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, where they're chipping away at the piece of ice and they float off on their little island as the Yeti is going after. I'm the dude on the piece of ice right now, and I want a rescue rope.
But you look like you're having on my phone. But you look like you're having fun.
Yes, I was having fun.
That's why we just let you go with it.
And
talking about going with it, I want to also bring attention to this, because I think it's the third show in a row where Divinity Original Sin 2 has been mentioned in our shows. I mean, can we get away
not
from
sponsored?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Larian. I mean, you guys want to throw some cash our way, but so these are the breakdowns of the PC, the premium, it's important to say premium PC revenue. And the reason why it's premium, what makes a game premium, is that there's a premium to get into the game. A lot of people were a little confused on this. I saw that this was posted on the MMORPG forums. They were a little confused as to how these games are listed when there are other games that made so much more. And you are right, because free-to-play games, I think, made millions more than these quite heavily. And I think we actually have a graph between... Do we have a graph? Let me see. Do I have the graph? Is this a graph? No, this is big name shooters. But we do have a graph somewhere. I'll try and find it. But it's basically saying that free-to-play is the way to go if you're going to be making a game, any kind of game. But... going into this, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds,
surprising nobody.
It surprises me because Overwatch is in second place by a wide margin. I mean, that's
that is a huge margin.
It's huge.
Honestly, I'm genuinely not surprised by PUBG, because you look at the meteoric growth in player base. It's absolutely insane how many people play that game. How many people play that game, it's how many new people play that game, like month over month over month. So I'm not surprised by this at all. And then you know, obviously this is PC, but just if we're talking about the game, like, you know, on Xbox, I think there's like 4 million players on Xbox. I mean, the PC number completely dwarfs that, but there's a reason why it's also growing on Xbox, is because it's you look at the growth and success of this game on PC. So I'm not surprised that PUBG just completely dwarfs any other game on this list. Really, the success of that game last year is kind of unprecedented.
I think there were some big names in streaming too that also streamed a bunch of PUBG. I mean, present company included, Shank. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we have a weekly live stream. Like,
what's interesting though is it's a pretty harsh game. Like it's awesome. It's out there. I really like PUBG, but the fact that it got as popular as it did, while continuing to be, frankly, pretty difficult and at times unforgiving, it definitely broke through in a way that when it first was announced, I wouldn't have expected it to do that. But it's awesome to see.
Yeah, and I think one of the reason is because if you throw that list back up there, the reason I think that PUBG really resonated, and I really do think that this is a reason why it defines its success in a way, is that compared to the other games, if you think about PUBG thematically, it's such a simple game. Like from a theme standpoint, it's so focused on what the actual loop is. You drop in with 100 players, and the last one to survive wins. That's it. That's it. Like at the core, that's what the game is. And there's a reason why we were seeing all these battle royale games crop up this year, is because that very simple focus, I think, genuinely allowed people to get into the loop over and over and over and over again without really feeling like, oh man, I just had an epic loss, I'm never going to play this game again. It's no, because like every single game is an opportunity for something new. And I think that's the simplicity of that game is why, especially if you compare it to the other games on this list, like these are super complex games. Like look at Divinity Original Sin 2, man. Like that is a deep, deep, deep game.
That's true. But I just want to point out while you're going into this that there are only 3 games on this list that are not shooters.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it's really, honestly, because I feel like the loop in these types of games, they're much simpler than the games 4 through 10 on this list. Overwatch is kind of the same way. Overwatch definitely has more complexity than PUBG, but it's a lot simpler than Destiny 2, for example. So I think it's because of the laser focus and the very narrow loop that PUBG offers. That's why I think really it spoke to a lot of people that they bought into it, and present company included.
Well, and then onto that shooter, point. Big name shooters contributed over $3 billion to the console market. $3 billion to the console market. So, what's interesting about that though is that if you look at this list, PUBG is not on the top spot, which just kind of like it's interesting. It's interesting.
Is that surprising though? Because that doesn't surprise me, honestly. Because number one,
it surprises me that PUBG made so much money and didn't top the console list. That surprises me.
Yeah, see, the reason it doesn't surprise me is because it only released very late last year, and it's only on one console.
Yeah, well, it's on the Xbox, which is the lesser of the two major consoles right now. So yeah, I mean, I guess I could see what you're saying there. But
that also
still, like,
that also being said, that is a lot of revenue to make it in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fact that it has 4 million people already in that short amount of time, that's pretty nuts. So, like, it might not have made the actual like revenue list here, but this year I'm pretty sure we're gonna see it.
Yeah, well, you'd imagine so, unless something crazy comes out. You never know. Maybe we'll be seeing Monster Hunter. How about that? Maybe we'll be seeing it, and Chris won't get to talk about it.
What's this Monster Hunter you're talking about?
Why would I not get to talk about it?
Because you're not going to play it despite the cats, despite the Palicos.
Dude, I bought it right after our last podcast.
Did you really?
You said Palico, and I put the Calico and Pal together, and that was it. And the first thing I did is I tried to make that cat look exactly like my cat.
Did it work?
And yes, my son came down from his nap after I did this, right? Or the next day. And he's like, Daddy, it's a kitty. And I was like, yes, it is a kitty. So I show him. He's like, it's Simon. That's the shirt sucker. It's Simon. And then for the rest of the time that I'm playing this game, like I'm running around because I can't be violent in front of my son.
Of course.
He's like so worried about Simon running around in this game in the jungle. It was adorable.
That's awesome. And this was another episode of Chris's Cat Corner.
Yes. And my wife criticized the fact that the cat that I made did not look close enough to her actual cat. And I had to explain character creators at that point. Yeah, this is the adventures in married man family gaming here. Yeah.
It wouldn't be a GameSpace Game Show without something having to do with cats and cat corners.
Oh, I could go on.
Let's be more specific about that. It's Chris's cat.
Yeah,
listen,
I got to be honest. I steer the conversation there. I have to steer it there at least once per episode, or the episode is crap to me. I just can't. I can't deal with it.
Yeah. For all of our watchers, we're contractually obligated. For Chris to be on the show, we have to talk about his cats. That's in his contract.
Chris's cats.
So my cats, they search for my nipples, right? Not my nipples, but they think I have cat nipples, so they suck on my shirts. But you see, my one cat, I should say. But my wife has been getting frustrated with him because he comes in first thing in the morning. He waits outside my bedroom door, right? So my son wakes up, he opens the door, cat runs in. She's frustrated with him because she just washed the sheets, and he's discovered, hey, I don't have to suck on his shirt because I don't have a shirt on in the morning. I don't have to suck on his shirt, but I can suck on the sheet. And it frustrates her. She's like, those are clean sheets. And he's just going to town sucking like you wouldn't believe, man. This is my cat. This is my boy.
So everyone out there got that?
Yeah.
Moving on.
Don't be biased against my cat, man.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So Dame mentioned this earlier, the gaming video content revenue. We're not included in that because we make no revenue. But
time.
The interesting about this is Twitch. We're out there on Twitch. All you Twitchers, hello. Twitchers, do you call them Twitchers? Twitchies? What do you call them? Anyone know? Anyway, 54% of all gaming video content is on Twitch. I got a call from YouTube. They're feeling left out a little bit. They want you guys to watch more YouTube, but we stream on everything, so it doesn't matter where you go, we'll find you. I like how everything else is just other, though.
Tell them to fix their algorithm first.
Yeah, that's true. So other, I'm actually pretty impressed with the rise of Mixer. That's getting up there. I've been toying around with a little bit with Mixer Interactive. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do. I'm working on making a co-op game because you can actually, as a viewer, play a game with me. If I were streaming, you could play a game with a streamer. So I'm working with Mixer Interactive right now to try and find a game that's going to be capable of doing that. So I think that Mixer may kind of be closer to what we're seeing rise in the future. But even still, Twitch #1, and it sounds like they're going to be competing directly with YouTube this next year with original video content. What do you guys think? Do you think anything?
Well, I think that Twitch is actually going to get a huge bump because there were some of the larger names in streaming that are actually mentioned in the survey. I believe Markiplier and Jacksepticeye have both signed deals with Twitch to stream exclusively on that service. So those are some hefty channels. Those are some hefty numbers that YouTube Gaming will be losing to Twitch. I'm very interested though, and I'm glad that you brought Mixer up because I feel like it's kind of a sleeper service right now. I'm very curious to see what happens with it in the next year.
They have a name problem though. Like it's cool. Like I had never really looked into it before getting the Xbox, but it sounds like a dating service.
Is that what it sounds
honestly?
Like? Because I was thinking like what you were doing is you were looking up mixers and like there were just like a bunch of cooking supplies coming up when you were trying to find it.
No, no. I mean, it is cool. Like when I was first checking out this Xbox, seeing as like you have multiple streamers on there at once, it's neat. They're doing something unique, and that's cool. We need more of that. But they don't have a name that implies what that thing actually is.
That's true. That's true. I can see what you're thinking when you're thinking Mixer. Kind of like a mingling and dating and stuff like that, networking of some kind of thing. But honestly, I did look it up and I did find Mixers whenever I searched for Mixer. I totally did.
You know what I'm wondering will happen though is as things start to switch over to Twitch, how this service is going to change, because we've seen so many different evolutions in how YouTube is handling things, notably with advertisements and how they're making revenue over there. They're calling it the adpocalypse because of questionable content coming up, and Twitch does have some darn questionable content, things they let slide through the cracks there. So I'm curious if they're going to become this major presence, how long they go before we start seeing things crack down or shift from kind of the open platform it is now. And don't get me wrong, they do moderate. Like they definitely ban people and do things like that. But the bigger you get, the more money that's coming in, the more beholden you become to advertisers to protect your profits. So it'll be really interesting to see what comes this year.
Yeah, YouTube did put out a notice talking about how a lot of the times people were abusing the channels and things like that, and now they want to be committed to quality content. And I think that's really why they changed things that like in order for monetization you need 1,000 subscribers, you need all this kind of stuff, because I think it just makes it easier for them to keep the people making quality content. But honestly, like, you can circumvent those rules so easily, if you really wanted to. I don't really know how that's going to work for them in the long run, but it seems like a lot of people still go to YouTube for a lot of different things, but I don't really see such a resurgence. It sounds like they're on the decline as far as gaming is concerned, even though gaming was the second most watched thing on YouTube. Even with that said, the second most popular search for thing, even with that said, they still didn't do, I mean, I guess whatever that first thing was, they didn't tell me what the first thing was, but whatever it was, it must have been really good. But even still, the revenue for gaming just wasn't as hot as Twitch. So, I mean, I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen there.
Well, let's look at it a little bit more as far as the statistics go. See if I can get this thing to... okay, so esports. How you guys feel about esports, huh?
Don't get it.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't get esports, except for the fact that we do have a Tawdry Balls esports league, of which Bradford and I are shoutcasters. So other than that, like we're actually going to be competing in the invitational, so it's going to be pretty epic.
So you don't get it, but you're a part of it.
Yep.
Okay.
Our team has won literally every single tournament it's ever entered into. So
how many has that been?
Like 17 million.
That's so many.
It is. Yeah.
It's very impressive.
It is.
Well, on that note, what about you guys? I mean, obviously nobody gets it, but yet everyone's watching it. So how do you explain it? I mean, is this just the Asian countries? Because it's very big in the Asian countries, obviously. But the market forecast is what we're looking at here, and it's growing, so more people are watching. So if we're all out here, we're all gamers, we're not really big fans of it or really understand it, aside from being part of it.
Well, no, so I have a friend who, like, he genuinely does like watch this stuff, and I know like Bradford and stuff, he watches some of the the fighting game championships and those kind of tournaments.
Yeah, I've seen some of
and
those.
I can see why people would like esports. I really can, but I find them boring. Like I just can't watch them. I just I'd rather just play the game than watch somebody else play it.
Me too. Me too.
And the other thing is too, like the games that are being shown, like I have no interest in those types of games anyway. So I honestly think that has a lot to do with it as well.
Well, that's true, but I think I understand a little bit. So, I mean, we're streamers. You're a streamer, Shank. I mean, I'm a streamer. People watch us because maybe sometimes they want to see what we're doing or how we do certain things. My channel got popular because of the instructional videos. To show people how to do certain things or how to complete certain things with whatever. So I think whenever you're talking about esports leagues, you're talking about seeing what the top of the top are doing, if they are indeed the top of the top, and how they're doing it to maybe play the games that you're interested in better.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's what I'm mean. So like I can see why people would be interested in that, because seeing like a professional of anything at their best, seeing that level of skill that's involved, there's definitely going to be some sort of attraction to that. So I completely get that. But I think that there's a difference between watching somebody who's like the top of the game do something so skillfully versus watching like me and Bradford play PUBG and just fail hopelessly. Like I think those are two very different things, because one you watch, I think, for just sheer like hilarity and entertainment, and the other one I think you watch because you're so impressed with how epic everything is.
Yeah.
But I also do think a lot of it has to do with the actual like genre of the game, because the MOBAs and stuff like that, they very clearly have an audience, and it just happens that those are the types of games that I have no interest in. So that's why I kind of really don't watch it, because the genres that tend to go to esports, I really don't really care for them too much.
Yeah.
But I can understand why people would do that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. The most popular games on esports right now, since you brought it up, I didn't do it. It's not me. League of Legends, #1, big game, very big. PUBG, that's what you guys are going to be doing. Hearthstone, Dota 2, Overwatch, Counter-Strike. So I really don't play any of these games religiously. So I've played more than half on the list here, but none of them I would watch for specifically. Like I would not watch esports for any of these games, because I mean, they just don't interest me that much. They're fun to hop into and play a little bit, but at a professional league, I don't really I don't really see the need for that. So I mean, I get you on that one. But what about you guys? Anything else that you've noticed about these games? Any of these games that you play that you maybe didn't know there was an esports league on?
So I actively play Heroes of the Storm, and I love it. And I have actually watched some of the competitions for Heroes, and I'll tell you that I've walked away from some of those things learning things. I think that one of the things that really matters if esports is going to take off, and I'm honestly like I struggle to sit and watch any type of sport. So like I'm like even this Sunday with the big game that's happening, something about superb owls. But anyway, I really struggle to sit and watch to sit and watch something like that. But somebody in the chat here actually was talking about sitting down and just kind of watching something and relaxing and stuff like that. That's kind of been my MO. You put something up on one screen, you're playing something on another, kick back and relax. But two things that are very, very important to the success of esports, though, is I believe that you have to have the right people commentating on them. I'm really surprised to see that PUBG is #2 on this list, not because of popularity, but because, from my understanding, there's really not a lot of commentary that you can go with on that, from the standpoint of like, and again, this is coming from a little, just having a very, very brief understanding or very, very limited understanding of PUBG. But you know, I'm just not really sure what there is to commentate on that, or where you, or how you follow, you know, 100 people in a battleground at a time and go, okay, well, they're going to the school and they're going to go to this place and they're going to the other place. And you know, this is what this means strategically. I don't know that is a thing that exists. And maybe Shank can correct me on that.
Shank, explain it. Explain to everyone.
So
show pictures.
The crazy, the thing is with PUBG specifically is that there's very clear almost acts to the game where you have the beginning where it's just kind of a melee and everybody's dropping down, and then you have the middle bit, which is collecting the loot and try to get into the right position, and then the end game is where everything just like ratchets up like crazy. But from a commentary standpoint, because I think you're right there, you know, having shoutcasters who know what's going on in the game and can like convey that to the audience, that's critical, right? But for PUBG, I think because of the fact that there's 100 people and the debug tools that game has, because you can literally kind of just like fly around if you check out some of the debug tools, it's very. I have seen some videos where it's absolutely insane that when you are playing, when you're concentrating and you're just trying to like, you know, you're in a house and you're just trying to loot something, or you're out in a field and you're just kind of like talking with your teammates, it's absolutely crazy how close teams and other people get to each other without realizing that the other person's there. So if you're viewing that from an audience's perspective and you're like, oh my God, this dude is literally 10 yards away, that's crazy. And those two teams don't even see each other. I've had experiences in that game where I can only refer back to like the all gillied up level in Call of Duty, where me and my buddy were literally just on the ground, flat, just prone, and a complete squad of 4 people just walked right by us and they didn't see us. So there are moments of tension in that game where you can comment, but the thing is, it's how you. What do you talk about in the downtime? And I think that's something that people do have to consider when they're shoutcasting that game.
Yeah, it's basically like you need somebody who's, you know, at that level to be able to comment on that level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so there's that, and then the other thing is that there's a need for the crowd to be able to emote with what's going on.
Crowd emojis.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, man. Like if you've ever been in a place like a stadium or anything like that, that you know that there's been, you know, some major event that happens, like being in a crowd like that and having those like moments of celebration together. And so, I mean, those are just huge things for any type of sporting event or any type of competition or you know, stuff like that. But I think that like it's so funny, like in the last couple of years, like especially from like the standpoint of like of sports commentary, like the way that esports has been framed has been a little bit toxic, and so so I'm not really sure. Like I guess that fandoms need to be able to have permission to be able to celebrate the thing that they're fanning over, I guess, is where I'm getting at. So it's kind of a two-part thing of like quality commentary and a fan base and a fandom that's willing to, you know, kind of go nuts when they need to go nuts with the thing.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I can see how that is. I mean, it is one of those things, like I don't watch a lot of sports, but if I was there, I could see myself maybe getting into it or something like that. Which is also a pretty good segue, because now we're going into actually being somewhere without ever actually being anywhere. And in that, I'm talking about VR. Guys, you like VR? Anyone?
I do.
Okay, well, we're not talking to you. What we're going to talk about is VR as far as the boom that never was. Because
Get out of here.
I'm going to say that it never was, because I want you to look at these numbers. Hardware generated 75% of VR revenue, but software monetization was limited to just 554 million. 554 million is a lot, but I want you to know, to take note specifically, that in the Super Data report, they did not list any VR games. None. There were no VR games listed.
That's not surprising.
Well, no, it's not. But that's because I'm right.
Go ahead, Dave.
It's not surprising because of the cost of hardware versus the cost of game. If you're just looking at the dollar amount of what was spent in the category, then you're going to have hardware win hand over fist.
No. That can't be true, because you can buy. I mean, okay. First, let's talk about Google Cardboard. I mean, the majority.
Hold on. No. We're talking about real VR. Okay?
No. We're not talking about real VR, because Gear VR is just as good. Well, it's not just as good. It's similar. It's on the same footing. They're in the same general.
No, it's not.
It's very similar.
Not
if
even
you're
close.
talking about Google Cardboard in comparison to a Gear VR system, I've worn them both. I wear Cardboard all the time just for fun. I'm saying that, like, they're very similar in application, and the games are sometimes shot for shot similar to, I mean, because Gear VR in itself, you're still using the cell phone as the gyroscope and all that kind of stuff. So it's basically the same system, just one's Cardboard, one's a little bit nicer, one's a little bit more comfortable, one's not
corrugated,
cardboard.
one's not.
Basically, but in the end, we're talking about roughly the same application, to one another. And Gear VR was the majority of the sales.
Well, sure, but you're still talking about fake VR.
Well, then fake VR is the best VR.
Fake VR is dismissive, and I'm being intentionally dismissive. But that is not the future of VR in any respect, except for the fact that it's wireless. Wireless is the future of VR. But if you want to talk about what's possible in VR and like to get a real VR experience, you're not doing it with either one of those things.
No, but yes. Yes, you are. You are going to be doing those because like you said, it's the easiest VR to get into.
It's the most accessible, you're saying.
Accessible is the correct word. Wait, wrong side. Thank you, Shank. This is me thinking high 10. I don't know what that is. But
the crab speaking.
I mean, you're right. I agree with you. I'm very passionate about VR. I've tried all the sets. Almost all the sets, not any of the new ones and not any of the knockoffs, but I've tried the Vive, I've tried the Rift, I've tried the PSVR, I've tried, I have a Gear VR. I've spent a lot of time and I've made content for it as well. So I know basically what to expect. Now, I will say that there are some pretty good games out there that they're edging more towards, like the Fallout VR and things like that. But
Fallout VR is not a good experience.
Okay.
Says you.
Okay, well,
we're going to go fist to fist here, my friend.
I mean, the problem is Fallout 4 is just not a good game. I mean, that's your problem right there.
Well, now we can't take anything Shank says as his, that's not the truth, obviously. We know that as a fact. Fallout 4 is amazing. Everyone loves it except Shank. But yeah, I mean, so what? You want to talk about like the Skyrim VR?
No, what I want to talk about is that this whole thing is missing the entire point, because VR right now is in it's at such an infancy that there is absolutely no yardstick by which we can measure anything. First of all, we don't even know what we're measuring. That's the problem. VR? And VR is it's just so early in the VR life cycle that when people were saying, oh, it's like the future, this is the new way to game, like, we don't know what that even looks like. So, because right now, what we're looking at for VR games is they're just regular games that have been kind of transformed to fit into the VR ecosystem. And I fundamentally think that that's the wrong way to think about VR games, and because you need to create bespoke experiences specifically for VR, and we don't have that yet. Nice Oculus. We just don't have that yet. So I think for VR, it's going to still be like 10 years, I think, before we actually have some sort of standardization and expectation around what a VR experience can be. What are the technical limitations? How do we overcome that? Because right now there's really we don't even know what the yardstick looks like for VR. So
yeah, you are exactly right.
I mean, so.
People went so far over the edge proclaiming that this was going to be so revolutionary that they did go too far. And I was being a little facetious before, but I do think that you're seeing just a ton of games, and like people are figuring out like what are the rules in this new space. So VR is not necessarily setting the world on fire, primarily, I think, because of Dame's point, which is it's really expensive to get in there. And at the point when you're asking someone, $600 to get in, which is what it was for a long time. And I think
it's not. Like, the majority of the revenue is from a system that everyone carries around. Mobile games are making so much money, but people aren't playing VR games. They're not playing them, even though, and I would like to point out that Samsung themselves was shipping VR units with every phone purchased, and we're talking in the millions. I mean, they saturated the market. They considered them sales, but they saturated the markets with the S7 whenever it released, with the Note 7, which exploded in everyone's faces.
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, those were things that came with those phones because that's what they were trying to push. And then we have Google's Daydream, which is, I don't think that I can't recall if it came with the Pixel or something, but I know that was kind of one of the big sellers. Now, I'm not saying that mobile VR is the best VR. I'm saying that it's the best VR because it's mobile, and
it doesn't cost a ton. Yeah. And it doesn't cost a ton. But here's the thing. Now, I'm going to tell you that my experience with the Gear VR in particular, and the lesser tiers of VR, the more accessible ones, is more limited.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't think they compare in a meaningful way. They are so much more limited than an Oculus or a Vive.
Explain limited.
So it's super simple. Like, I would not compare a game like Clash of Clans to a sprawling RPG like Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yep.
It's the same comparison.
But let's talk about it in the sense of, I mean, you have to look at where we are in terms of technology today. All right. So we have like I haven't tried it yet, but the GeForce Now beta. I mean, look at that. We're talking about
insane.
It is, but
really good.
Even still, I mean, we're talking about like streaming games that, basically the main constraint of mobile VR right now is hardware. The hardware is not strong enough, but aside from that, it's there. I mean, you could stream high definition anything to a mobile set, right? I mean,
I'll give you an example. No, I see what you're saying, but I'll give you an example. So technically, so technically a Rolls-Royce and a Toyota Prius can both drive at 35 miles an hour, but which would you rather be in?
It depends.
No, you want to be in the Rolls-Royce. It doesn't matter where you're going because it's the better experience.
Who wants to be in a Prius?
Well, maybe I care about the environment.
You'd rather, because technically you're not wrong in saying that they're both VR, because they are VR, but to suggest that because they're both technically VR that they're kind of on the same thing, that's not accurate.
I'm just saying that it's not accurate because of the hardware, right? I mean, that's basically what everyone's saying. The room scale is what we're talking about primarily, is what the main differences are. Because if you talk about the actual resolution, the resolution's pretty similar. I mean, it doesn't look exactly like the color depth and the screens are a little bit different, but the resolution's there. I mean, if you look at, the hardware, as far as what runs it, well, you have a PC, basically bankrolling the software. So, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying, but I'm saying in terms of mobile sets, they're easier to use. There's less setup. I think that, in terms of where we're going to see the mobile sets going in the next, few years, I mean, it doesn't even really matter, because in the end, as much of an explosion of mobile sets, and I'm talking about mobile as being the most successful VR right now, it still didn't matter, because everything was hardware, nothing was software, it's not supported, there's not a lot of great games out there, and I don't think in 10 years we're going to be seeing much difference in terms of what's happening in VR, because everyone, wait for it, everyone, because...
Did you lose your train of thought, Steven?
No, I didn't. Because, bam, more money was invested in augmented and mixed reality than VR in 2017. And that's why, my friends, that
He's pulling up the research.
You go ahead, Chris.
I don't buy that. Because
I don't either. Yeah.
This is something that's coming out. Of course, it's getting more investment. This is the new thing, right? This is something they're hoping is going to take off. It's not out there in the market. It's not proven yet. Whereas VR is a product that's actually out there, and it didn't necessarily light the world on fire. I'll give you that for a lot of different reasons. Whereas all of these companies, they want to come out with a revolutionary tech product that is going to be the dream, like, my mind wants to go to the holodeck, but not to that point. But the dream piece of tech that becomes the new iPhone, the thing that everybody wants to have. So when I look at things like mixed reality, which coincidentally, there are no mixed reality apps for any of the mixed reality headsets right now. It's all VR. But when you look at things like this, of course, they're going to invest in that and have more of an investment, because this is a wave that's rising, whereas VR is out there and being developed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, go ahead. Go, Shank.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think more importantly, people were saying the exact same thing about VR, like, oh, it's going to be the next big thing. We're seeing the same narrative here with AR, like, oh, AR is going to be the next thing. People are going to be investing in it. I honestly think, to buy into any of this is pretty naive at this point, because we just don't know. We genuinely don't know. And I think it's way too early to make any sort of, claim that this is like AR is going to be huge. Mixed reality is going to be huge.
Well, and the other part of this too is that we also have to recognize that the Kickstarter for the Oculus Rift was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
now, in technology years,
though.
No, it does. It does, because in technology years, that is an eternity.
Google Glass.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that Google Glass...
How many glass holes do you see walking around?
Not a lot. But I just wanted to point out that predates Oculus. I just wanted to point that out. It predates it. It was not ready for prime time. That doesn't mean that AR isn't ready. It's just that we're talking about, in VR, we're talking about buy-ins nowadays. Like I was saying, you already bought a phone and you get a headset. Now we're talking about, Google Glass, near 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, we're talking about an $1,000 buy-in for something that still is just like basically, an attachment to a phone similarly. But now we're talking about companies like, what I find interesting about this, and I'm going to show it again real quick so you guys can see it, is whenever it talks about the investment of revenue, it talks about basically three different areas of revenue. We have augmented and mixed reality, which is lumped into its own little category. Then we have virtual reality, and then we have Magic Leap. Now, Magic Leap has been backed by a lot of different companies. Basically, it's the new. It's what they're considering like the mixed reality messiah. It's going to come and save all of augmented reality, because it basically will shoot laser beams in your eyes and make you see these things. I mean, I don't know exactly how it works. I'm not I'm not a scientist.
I can tell you how it works. And it's an important point, because if we're going to talk about which one of these things is going to hit and take off first, it's going to be VR. And Magic Leap is a prime example of that. The way it works is they strap a high-powered computer onto your head, and it's going to cost an absolute fortune to pull that off.
Well,
yes, it is.
But first
They've
of all,
said that it is literally a high-powered
hip,
computer strapped to your head.
It's not on your head. It's on your hip.
Whatever.
They released it. It's a tether. It's a tether. But even still, yeah, I mean, it shoots laser beams, but it's not going to be VR. It's going to be mixed reality. You're going to be able to see through the thing. I mean, I wish I would have prepared, but I mean, if you guys saw the Star Wars video that they had with the things and the R2D2 and C3PO, I'm basically acting it out for you guys. This is basically what it looked like, but it was, I mean, it was amazing. It looked like they were in the room with you. I think that the technology is, yeah, I mean, it was Magic Leap, and it was through the actual, you know what, you guys talk about it in a second. I'm going to see if I can find that video.
Okay, so I'll give some context to what I said about it being VR that takes off first. So this is my thought on kind of where this will all land. I say VR is going to take off first, primarily because the tech is already out there and being refined. So they have quite the head start to be able to do that. And in both of these cases, I think it's going to come down to the cost of entry. That's the single biggest thing holding VR back, is the cost of entry. So as the prices for that go down, I would anticipate that's going to pick up more. And by that point, developers are going to have more of an idea of how to make quality VR games, because they are out there. They're just short. Mixed reality, however, has a huge advantage in the fact that it's not as isolating. Like, one of the reasons why the Gear VR I don't think is as huge as many people would like it to be is by virtue of putting that HMD on your head, you're isolating yourself from everything, right? So it's eye straining too. So mixed reality won't necessarily have that, but I would say that their challenge is, until they can make those things small and stylish, nobody's going to be wearing those things out of the house anyways, or at least very few people, because they're going to cost a fortune. You're going to look silly wearing these big old glasses around town. So they're not going to have as big of a pickup for quite a while anyways, unless they surprise everybody and they are actually small and stylish, which would be the ultimate goal. And we'll have to see what they actually come out with. But both of these technologies have pretty big challenges to overcome. They're both very cool, but cost and utility, like practicality, I mean to say, are the big things that they have to overcome in both cases, and software. So
go ahead and check out the stream. This is the video that I was talking about with Magic Leap. So this is shot through the actual Magic Leap technology, and this is what you'd be looking at. Now, if you actually take a look, you can see that it's, it looks like it's actually there, but you can still see the room around you. This is not like you're actually looking through, I guess, what would be a pair of glasses. You can still see the table. You can see things showing up on the table. It detects, everything around you. And this is why companies like Google have spent billions into this company. I mean, we're talking about a lot of money has been given to Magic Leap to mature this technology and make it usable to the consumer.
That is incredibly cool.
It's
like,
cool.
I'm not dismissing mixed reality. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm not for a second dismissing the actual potential of the technology. What I'm saying is that I think it's just too early to just say that this is the next thing, regardless of what that thing is. I think it's too early, because we're so far early into the infancy of these types of technologies that to understand the potential future applications for things that we just don't even know yet, I just think it's way too early to make any sort of messianic statements or that's prophecies.
That's definitely playing it safe. Yeah, I mean, that's a safe way to look at it. We kind of touched on that on our last show about not buying into the hype. I think that's what you were focused on last show, Shank.
Yeah, it's just I don't think, I mean, we definitely need, I mean, don't get me wrong, we need investments. We need to see new technology. Innovation is the greatest thing. Innovation is what drives human beings forward. But we need to be very, very careful when we're looking at just numbers, because numbers don't tell the whole story. They don't really tell you the context of what's going on around these numbers. And I think to just look at them without understanding the story, or even doing what we're doing right now and sitting back and trying to analyze the context of what's happening, if you only look at the numbers, I think you're going to be blind to the more important pieces. So I think for VR, AR, mixed reality, to claim that any one of these things this is the next thing, I think is very naive. It's very, very naive. And it's just, I don't think speculating on these things is honestly good, because we just don't know. That's the honest truth, was we don't know.
That's the entirety of the report, is speculation on these things. But, you know, I do know what you're saying. Originally, whenever they started talking about VR, you know, they had to basically tone down the forecasts substantially within the first couple of years. So, you know, I'm not really sure where it's going to go. But if I had to put a bet down, if you twist my arm, I'm going to bet on AR taking the reins from VR sooner than later. And that's just my personal bet. I feel like you guys can go to town with saying I told you so when the time comes, and that doesn't happen. But
I'm not going to say I told you so, because I'm going to guess that as a supporter that would like one of these, you have a good $5,000 in the bank to buy one when they come out. And if you put $5,000 down, you're going to get something that's really cool. And I'm completely pulling that number out. Actually, no, I'm not, because Google Glass was $5,000, wasn't it?
Google
When they came
Glass,
out
Something ridiculous.
I think originally, it was selling for $1,000 for the pre-orders or something like that.
Okay,
But
yeah. So yeah, I did just pull that number out. Can we just take a second though?
HoloLens was $3, so you're not too far off. But
okay, maybe it was HoloLens. I was thinking of.
HoloLens was $3.
I think it's very cool that we can even have this conversation, though. Like, look at how far technology has come where we're talking about this. And let's say you're right, Stephen, that this does actually take off, right? And that MR, augmented reality, becomes this new thing. That would change the world. Like, if that came out and did get a uptake like the iPhone, honest to goodness, that would change the world. If people walking around wearing these glasses, let's say, it ties into your Facebook account or whatever. So you meet somebody in the grocery store and it brings up some background information on them. That would be incredible.
That'd be super creepy.
I mean,
I was going to say, that'd be really creepy.
I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've done a lot of research on this. Especially, like I said, I did do content for it before for VR, so I was also in the AR space, and I did get to look over the patents that Magic Leap has. They published some of their patents, and some of the stuff that they were talking about will revolutionize everything. We're talking about basically having a PC on you at all times that you can see anywhere you go. You're looking at it if you're in the grocery store, you're looking at it, basically you walk into an office building and there's nothing on any of the desks. Everything is in your, I'm not wearing glasses, but basically if Dane pointed to his glasses, that's what I would be talking about. So, I mean, I look at it more of like a futurist kind of thing. I have a futurist approach to AR over VR. I think, maybe in a couple decades, we're going to have mobile devices powerful enough that we will be utilizing head-mounted displays that are closer to what we think of as sunglasses than computers, maybe.
Then a couple years after that, we all get eye cancer.
Yeah, well,
right.
I mean, I can't tell the future. I'm just good at making off-base predictions. And let's talk about off-base predictions. Rumors, guys. The Microsoft rumors. This is a perfect segue. I love these. Of the rumor that Microsoft is going to buy one of these three: Valve, PUBG, the game itself. I don't know if they're talking about Bluehole Studios, or EA. Tell me what you think.
I think is really funny is that there are three companies and Valve is one of those, because Valve has a really big problem with threes.
Yes. Very good. I think, it's interesting because like we had Bradford and I on the podcast last night, we spoke for like about an hour and a half just on this one topic. And actually, if I'm going to shamelessly plug myself here, if you guys want to know more of my thoughts, I'm going to be writing an article on Monday that's going to be going live with my analysis on and take on some of this. But I guess in general, if I want to boil it down for this podcast, I personally don't think this is a good idea for consumers because there's a lot of big picture stuff that I think in everything that I've read about this rumor and, you know, games media take on it, you know, YouTube personalities take all of this stuff. They're all missing the bigger picture on this. And that's kind of shocks me. But there's a lot of red flags that I'm seeing in this rumor because there's a few numbers that we need to talk about. The first one is that Microsoft has reportedly has $130 billion in cash. Last I checked, EA's valuation is about $35 billion, or their market cap rather is about $35 billion. Microsoft can, you know, they can afford that. But what I'm not being seen asked is if they have $130 billion in cash, why are they not investing that internally into in-house talent? Why are they just trying to buy stuff? You know, that to me seems almost, it's, I mean, that to me almost seems callous. It really does seem callous because when you do this, when you take a large company and buy out another large company, that's inherently going to cause severe disruption. And it doesn't matter if it's PUBG Corp, Valve, or EA. It's going to cause severe disruption specifically for consumers. And me personally, that's the only outlook I ever care about. I don't care about the business side of these things. I only care how it's going to affect consumers. And we know that in this industry, money and greed pretty much drive everything. Again, look at the entirety of 2017. The temptation, the very real temptation is there for, if I'm going to use EA speaking in this example, but say they do purchase EA, that means they get access to all their IPs. There's absolutely nothing stopping them from taking the library that EA has and locking them down to the Xbox ecosystem. So Xbox ecosystem obviously means the console and the Windows 10 ecosystem. This I see as just fundamentally bad for consumers because I think to assume that they wouldn't do that is very reckless. We need to always assume that these companies do not have the consumer's best interest at heart because ultimately what they care about is their bottom line. And if locking down content which forces consumers to purchase their hardware positively impacts their bottom line, they're going to do it. They're going to do it regardless of what they've said in the past. Phil Spencer's on record of saying, I don't really like paying for exclusives. Yeah. That does not mean that in the future they're not going to do that because past performance is no indicator of future policies in this industry. It really isn't when money's involved. But
that's not traditionally the way that consoles worked. If you think back to back in the day, companies were selling consoles at a loss because all the money was made in software. So while EA exclusives would make sense, exclusives to Xbox, what you have to really think of is that by doing that, you're devaluing a company that right now makes as much as it does because it's cross-platform. It releases things on all the platforms, and therefore that's why EA is as big of a company as it is, because by doing that, they, that's their revenue stream. But if you knock that down to a platform like the Xbox and maybe the PC only, I mean, you're talking about, cutting their revenue almost, well, I wouldn't say in half, but I mean, look at how much the PlayStation has as far as consoles over the Xbox. We're talking about, millions. You would just be segregating so much of the player base, not to mention you also have to think of like licensing though.
Yeah, but that's kind of my point, is that these people already do that with timed DLC, timed exclusivity, all this kind of things. It's already happening. You talked about, and you're absolutely right in that people would sell consoles at a loss. But what's changed this generation specifically, I'm not counting the Xbox One X. They're very clearly selling that at a loss. You look at the base PS4 and the base Xbox One, they were selling them at a profit. But the thing is, in this generation specifically, you're not just buying into the platform, you're buying into the entire ecosystem. So this includes things like Xbox Live. This includes things like Xbox Play Anywhere, crossplay with Windows. This includes things like the Games Pass. So it's not just the platform. This is why I think that they have such a business incentive to lock things down, is because it forces people, oh, you have a PlayStation? Oh, too bad. You want to play the next FIFA, you have to get an Xbox.
Yeah.
Well, and this, I can very easily see that happening, because right now, Dame, you and I were having a conversation before the show about, well, where are my friends playing? Well, if you want to play with your friends and they have this game and it's the only place you can play it is on the Xbox, guess what you're going to need to buy? You're going to need to buy an Xbox. So that all I'm really suggesting is, and I'm not trying to make this out to be a doom and gloom type of thing, but what I want to convey is that we need to be, as media, as people who are responsible for educating consumers, I think it is our obligation to be skeptical about major decisions like this, decisions that will inherently affect consumers and our purchasing decisions and behavior. So while I don't necessarily think it's all doom and gloom, we do need to very realistically talk about the disadvantages that could happen to the consumer side of things, because you can bet that these companies won't really care about that as long as they're meeting their bottom line.
Yeah. Well, then, in your estimation, which one of these three would be the best thing for consumers, and which one would be the worst thing for consumers if Microsoft's looking to buy?
So in my opinion, none of them are good. Honestly, none of them are good. No, honestly, because picking any of them is just which evil do you want more? Do you want this one, or do you want this one, or do you want this one? Like, there's none of them. None of these outcomes are good for consumers. I am completely against exclusivity as is, unless there's a technical limitation, for example. I just think locking down content just based off the hardware that you have is just bad. It's just not, I mean, why are you inherently punishing consumers just for them making a decision on what hardware they want to buy? Maybe they're on a budget and you're going to punish them for that? Okay.
That's the way it's always been. That's the way it's always been.
That does not mean that it's good for consumers. Like, the argument that it's always been this way does not mean that it's the best thing for consumers. It just doesn't. That's why I'm never going to buy that argument, because saying that, oh, it's always been this way, it's always been done this way, there's always been these deals that have happened. So that doesn't mean that they've been good for consumers, even though it's been done for this long. So, and that's what I want to get at is, as media, we need to question those things. We cannot let these people just get away with this stuff and just let it slide and say, well, it's okay. It's not okay. We need to think about it. Oh. So, yeah, to answer your question, I don't think any of these are good. Honestly, I really don't, because this is going to cause such a disruption if it actually happens.
Dame, why don't you save us on this one?
Well, I'm kind of leaning towards the end of Shank's opinion on this conversation. One of the things that I guess for anecdotal conversation that Shank and I were having before the show started, I was talking about, I love the Halo franchise. But 343 Industries is a Microsoft-owned studio. Mm-hmm. So their game is exclusively on the Xbox One. Well, I bought an Xbox One so that I could play Halo 5. My Xbox One has sat in my basement for the last year, and I have not touched it since then, because where are all of my friends playing? They're playing on the PlayStation end of things. And so whereas some of the games are a little bit, have more social elements to them, or multiplayer elements to them, they're at least the ones that I'm enjoying currently. We kind of find ourselves in this really weird place of at what point, and this kind of goes back to that, the thing that Shank was saying about is it going to be good for consumers, or what's the tax on consumers? At what point do the consumers say, enough, I just don't have the money to buy another console to be able to play your exclusives. I'm sorry, loyalty is not enough to be able to get me to spend the money to be able to buy that thing. Now, I say that, and I bought an Xbox One for Halo 5, but lesson learned.
Well, So
and that's not to, and again, like that's not to say that that's not a good system. Like it's like for what it is, a great system. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, like, and this is a conversation that I've had with several people, you know, that are looking to buy their kids, you know, a console, or looking to, you know, get into their first, you know, current generation console. And, you know, the question is, okay, well, which one do I get? You know, which is better, you know, Xbox or PlayStation? I'm going, well, you know, this is one of the questions that I ask is, you know, are you going to be playing games that you want to play with other people, and where are they playing them? Because it's not worth that tax to get the quote unquote better system, or the system where the exclusives are, if that's not going to be the ecosystem where you're going to be playing the most.
Well, before you move on, I mean, Chris, any thoughts? Are you going to try and tell me that it's bad for everyone too?
No, I'm actually going to sit this one. I don't know if you noticed this, but my nose started gushing blood in the middle of that section.
We did not notice the blood, but you all right?
So I'm sorry, I missed half of that section. Yeah, it's I'm fine. I'm all better now, but
That's good.
Unfortunately I missed a whole bunch of that section. So sorry about that.
Yeah. Just one clarification. I'm not saying this is bad for everyone, because clearly it's not going to be bad for Microsoft.
Yeah, it's not bad for the company. I get it. Yeah.
But I'm going to come back to, like, I don't, as a consumer, as a journalist, I don't care what's good for the company. I only care what's good for consumers. And if it's, unfortunately, in this industry, a lot of times what's good for business is not good for consumers. That does not mean that you can have a policy where both you have benefits for the business and the consumer. We have proof of this in a few different examples, actually, in this industry. But the problem is that they're so rare because money is really driving everything. So unfortunately, from a consumer's perspective, fortunately from a business perspective, but from the consumer's perspective, a lot of times what's good for business is not good for consumers in this industry. So something like this,
always.
I could, yeah, and exactly, yeah. So I think that sometimes this is an example, I think, where Microsoft would clearly, I think, reap benefits from this. But would gamers?
Yeah,
I don't necessarily think they would.
It depends on what they buy. On what they buy. If it was EA, I think that you are going to see more exclusives on Xbox, but not all exclusives on Xbox. I think if they buy Steam, I think you're going to see a lot of integration between Steam, a Steam Link, and the Xbox console, which I think would be pretty freaking fantastic, me personally. If they buy PUBG, and that game specifically, I think that we can maybe consider it to be close to what they did on Minecraft, because we already saw their model for Minecraft and how they wanted. They could have bought Minecraft and locked it up and said, screw you guys, I'm taking my ball and going home. But instead they were like, you know what, I'm giving my balls to everyone. And that's what they ended up doing. They just balls for everybody. So I think that, like, and not just that, but everyone can play with each other's balls, and it's fine.
Phrasing, man.
I'm just saying, you know, nothing untoward, Dame. I'm just saying that
not one
what they
thing
did is they took, you know, Minecraft and they made it to where, you know, you could play it on the Switch, you could play it on the Xbox, you could play it on the PC, you could play it on the mobile device, but you could all be playing together with cross-platform play. PlayStation said no because they're stupid. But, you know, apart from that, I mean, Microsoft was, you know, allowing more people to play. And I think, you know, with them wanting to do more of that, it makes sense to think of Microsoft as being a more open platform no matter which one they buy. I don't think they're going to go, you know, like evil, you know, wizard or something and just like lock us all in a Xbox tower. I think that they're going to end up, you know, opening it up regardless of what they buy. I hope they don't buy EA because EA, but I definitely see in a Valve situation, in a PUBG situation, that it could end up being good for consumers. I know it's you, Shank. It seems like a lot of times you're very pessimistic about these kind of things.
It's not necessarily pessimism. It's not necessarily pessimism. we cannot assume the best from these people. We just can't. So to again, because I'm going to go back to the past performance is not an indicator of future behavior. Because if you're talking specifically about PUBG, for example, Phil Spencer has been very, very cagey about opening this up. Because if you actually look at what he's talking about on PUBG, he's very, very evasive on the subject. He has not denied that it won't come to PlayStation, but he hasn't confirmed it either, which directly contradicts his quotes of him being on record with GameSpot, for example, of saying that, yeah, I don't like the idea of gating people out of content and exclusivity. With Valve specifically, I can very easily foresee a situation, maybe they open it up. Like you said, maybe they open it up, but we can't assume that that's what they're going to do, because again, look at how they're treating UWP on Windows. Phil Spencer has been on record of being very hesitant about modding on UWP, something that Valve openly embraces with Steam Workshop on all of that. So if they get Valve, I can, again, very easily foresee a situation where they start to slowly but surely clamp down on that kind of stuff as they mold it into their UWP vision. So I don't think that we can go into this and say, hey, this can be good, because it's a dangerous thing to assume that just because a company has done one thing, that's what they're going to do from now on. I think we need to look at this with skepticism. We cannot. The thing we need to remember is that these people are not our friends. I mean, Phil Spencer is not our friend. No matter what he says and speaks on PR, he is a businessman. He's not our friend. To us.
So you're telling me I totally misread his T-shirt and suit jacket?
You did. And shame on you.
Every fell time. For it again.
But we need to be. I mean, this is the responsibility that we have as media. We have to be skeptical about this stuff, and to assume that these companies have our best interest in mind, to assume that they're going to do what's good for consumers, I think is very misleading, and that's not the right way to think about situations like this. We need to sit back and pragmatically analyze all the situations and recognize the potential where this could go wrong for consumers, because right now everything that I've seen and read has just been, oh, this can be good, with nobody talking about how this could be bad for consumers, and that's what worries me.
Okay, can I ask a third question in here, because we're talking about this being good for, we're talking about this being good for a consumer, good for a company, but I think there's a third question that's in here too, that is it good for the medium? If we look at the medium of video games, and maybe I'm pretentious in saying this, but I kind of view video games as kind of an art form.
Well, no, they are an art form. The Supreme Court ruled them as art. They are art.
Okay. So we have they are officially recognized as art here. We're talking about this from the standpoint of like again, consumer, producer, or developer, and a company, the corporate end of things. But what about the medium itself? Like what's going to be good for the medium itself? And again, like there's a certain portion of that where like good art inspires better art. It always inspires better things, and so what I'm wondering, like in this, is like, does any of these arrangements do any of these arrangements inspire better art? Do any of these arrangements inspire better things to be made, better stories to be told, better experiences for the player themselves?
I mean, it's tough to answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's tough to answer, but yes, because you're talking about a company like Microsoft bankrolling whatever they end up buying, which brings in new talent, brings in new stories. I can't say that that's always the case, such as whenever EA took in BioWare, and
that's the difference between a benefactor and a pimp.
Yeah, but it's basically the same thing in this situation, though. I mean, it really is.
I think for art, I think is one of these things, especially in because there really is no other medium like games, because games are like almost one of the few mediums where you're simultaneously creating and consuming, and you really can't say that about other things, other art forms. And I think specifically in this art form, the thing that really helps drive this art forward is competition. So when you get massive disruptive consolidation like this, I don't think it helps competition, to be perfectly honest with you. I think we do need different entities, different, platforms to drive each other and push each other. And I think if you have a mass consolidation like this, I think that could possibly inherently hurt the art just because of the, homogeneity of it and the lack of competition, really, or the reduced competition, I should say.
Yeah.
And then the question following off onto that is, can we at the same time have that same type of competition and remove exclusivity from it?
I think yes, you can, because again, for business to win, that does not mean consumers need to lose. So I absolutely think you can have wonderful, brilliant art and the propagation of new ideas without exclusivity. Because think about what that means. Really think about that. When you're by definition, when you're making something exclusive, that inherently means that the audience is going to be, you're inherently limiting the audience. That's just what it presupposes, that you're limiting the audience. But when you take something and when you open it up to everybody, you expose all those people who were outside of that circle to this new piece of art. Suddenly the demand for that could go up, like, wow, I was on, X console or X platform and I didn't even know that this experience existed. This is fantastic. I want to get that. I want more experience. So that's what I love about the openness. This is why I hate exclusivity, is because you're just inherently limiting the audience and limiting people just so you can make more dollars. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I think as a consumer, as a gamer who wants to see more games, don't you want to see all these games on all these other things? Like, why would you not want to experience? Why would you not want to? I'm sure you can find an Xbox gamer out there and say, like, man, I would have loved to play Horizon Zero Dawn, but I can't because it's only on this one platform. Good for Sony, sure, but for the gamer?
Well, it is bad, but, I guess that just depends on the company and how they perceive openness. And to be honest, I would much rather Microsoft be making these moves than Sony. I mean, anyone's to do it. We could do worse.
Yeah, I can definitely see your reasoning there, but I think to assume that Microsoft would be any better than any other major company, I think I gotta be hesitant and question that a little bit. I think we need to kind of, first of all, I think we need to see what happens, but when something like this does happen, it's really the onus is on us to hold our feet to the fire and say, hey, you said you were against Phil, Spencer, you have been on record of saying you don't like the idea of paying for exclusives, but now you're doing this. Why? Explain yourself. And that's the responsibility of us, is to hold their feet to the fire and ask these questions, right? In the event we have to. Yes.
And one of the more natural partnerships, and I kind of say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but I also say this with a modicum of seriousness to the statement as well. I really think the more natural partnership of any of these companies is Valve and Nintendo. When you look at the number of indie titles that have migrated onto the Switch, it's amazing. I mean, I've reviewed several of them, over on GameSpace, but it really is one of those things where, like, if there's going to be a partnership between any of these companies, I think that would be the one. But maybe that's a conversation for a different time.
Yeah, and that's I think it's a very interesting conversation to have. But I mean, these are personally, in my opinion, these are the conversations that should be happening right now amongst media, because I mean, consumers are going to be looking to us to figure out what does this mean. And I think it's kind of our responsibility to break this down and try to provide our insight on this stuff. But it's good conversation, I think. Yeah.
So moving on, we basically didn't get any positive or negative. Well, we got plenty of negatives on the rumors, but moving on to the newscast segment. What we know is that Perfect World Entertainment and Motiga are closing the game Gigantic. I don't know if you guys ever played the game. I did not. I'm seeing everyone shake heads.
So
I
okay,
played it a little bit. We on the podcast we actually interviewed their community manager at one point.
And I mean, how do you? I mean, obviously you've played it before, but you didn't play it consistently.
Minimally. I played it minimally. My thought on the game is that it looked very neat. It had some unique concepts, but it released into an overcrowded market, and most games that come out trying to do the MOBA thing these days fail. So they were just
They're like 3 years too late on that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a sad thing because they were doing some unique things, and for the record, I was really bad at that game, which is why I didn't continue to play it. But yeah, so it's too bad. I'm surprised they lived as long as they did, though, honestly,
Really?
because we did that interview like a year and a half ago, and maybe 2 years ago now. But shortly thereafter, they fired a whole bunch of their staff.
yeah, they had
And-
mass layoffs, if I remember.
Yeah, they did, and it seemed to
Way
me
to
at
go,
that time.
Chris.
Yeah, right. That was the nail in the coffin as they talked to me. But it seemed to me at the time that the game would probably never release, and it did, or at least got available to the wider public. Does anyone know if they actually released, or was this one of those beta things?
I remember playing the beta, and I remember hating it, and that was it.
Oh, okay. Well, in any event, I'm surprised they lived as long as they did, and it's too bad because it was a neat game.
Well, I mean, all I know of it is the art style, and I gotta say, I kind of liked it. Upon hearing about this, I did a little research because we were going to put it in the newscast, and it's a shame. It is a shame that they're shutting down. It's always a shame, but I mean, the game kind of looked cool. I would have liked to have tried it, and I know I can try it now, but I'm not going to play a game that's shutting down. What's wrong with you people? So.
I already went through that with Marvel Heroes.
Oh my gosh!
You don't need that
yeah.
heartbreak again.
Well, they didn't. They didn't tell me it was shutting down until it was shutting down. I
Why
mean,
can
it was
I picture you just like in the middle of a match, and all of a sudden the server is just closing?
that's basically what was going on. They had no idea what was going on, and I didn't know what was going on. But that's. I mean, if you guys want to hear me cry for a few hours, we could talk about that.
Yeah,
But
I'm here.
instead, we could talk about the Elder Scrolls Online. They are releasing an expansion pack. A DLC pack. I should say a DLC pack. Along with their Update 17. This pack is free to Elder Scroll players that are Elder Scroll Online Plus subscribers, I guess is what you would call them. And there's a lot of things in the update, things that people have been looking forward to. For example, let's see, they have an outfit system now where your gear can look different than the gear that has the stats. So that's always kind of cool. I love when games do that. They're introducing 2 new battlegrounds, which is great for people who were hoping for new battlegrounds, and a home storage system, which is something that they said was much sought after by the community. I have not I haven't gone back to the game since the expansion. So I mean, I don't know if you guys have checked it out, if you guys know what's going on in the game currently, but what do you guys think? Are you going to come back for the DLC?
No.
Okay.
I am so behind in ESO. ESO is one of those games that I love in principle, and I have this problem with like every single Elder Scrolls game. Like I for whatever reason, there's just so much to do that I have decision paralysis. And so I'll play for a bit, and then I am completely lost as to what to do next.
Yeah.
So I have maybe 6 characters that I started on that game. And never got anywhere near needing any type of downloadable content. So, no, it's probably not going to be bringing me back to it.
I actually may be going back soon. A friend of mine just picked it up on PlayStation 4, and I really enjoyed it actually on PlayStation 4 when I was doing it, so I was kind of looking for a reason to go back to it.
Okay.
So I may. So it's not because of this DLC. However, releasing DLC for free is good. I mean, that's an obvious statement, of course, but for a game this size and as popular as it is, it's a great way to draw other people back. So for me, I had like 6 months off from the game, something like that. This by itself wouldn't be enough to draw me back, but if you were on the fence, I could see how it would be.
Yeah. I've been thinking about going back. A lot of the people that I played with in my groups, they have moved on to Elder Scrolls from previous games. On the PlayStation as well. That seems to be one of the most preferred places to play it. Will I come back for the DLC? I mean, there's nothing in the update features that makes me want to come back. But I mean, if there's any time to come back, it's usually whenever there's more content, and maybe it will bring me back. But for all those out there who are Elder Scrolls fans, Elder Scrolls Online fans, well, you have something to look forward to, I guess. Lastly, on our news for this week, Conqueror's Blade Beta went live earlier Monday, I believe it went live.
And I watched some of your stream. That looked fun.
It was, depending on which part of the stream you got to watch.
The fun part.
Okay, well, the fun part was in the end, whenever my connection and everything was actually working and it was streaming. I actually have a little bit to show in the what am I playing segment. But Conqueror's Blade, it's a cool game, cool idea. It feels so Mountain Bladey to me, and I'm kind of digging it. So probably going to be playing that for a little bit. But have you guys, any of you guys, gotten into the beta? Have you gotten keys or anything?
I haven't. I honestly know very, very little about this game. So I'm curious to learn more about it and see if it's a type of game that I would even like. But yeah.
Well, it is an MMO, so that might count you out.
Well, there you go.
But it's not, I wouldn't say that it's a true to form MMO. I don't know how many players you can have at any given time. I think the matches that I saw were 15 and 15. But I mean, you play PUBG, so that's not, far and away anything different. Mostly it's hub based. It seems like you're in the big castle hub. Then you load into levels. There are PvE levels and there are PvP levels. I stayed in the PvE levels because I was horrible and still trying to learn my way. You control a little army and you can upgrade them and do things like that. It's a fun game, especially if you like Mountain Blade. If you've played that game, if you know what it is, I'd say.
So is it like an isometric view, or is it like over the shoulder? Okay.
Oh well, I'll show you. It's third person.
Okay, cool.
So something that you'd be used to, but Mountain Blade is kind of what it's after, modeled after in a lot of ways. So I think that if you like that game, you're gonna love this game. And I don't know how great it's gonna do in general, but I know I'll be playing it for a while. And that leads into our segment on what are you playing, which we're going to start with Shank because we always love his plugs. So what do you got going on?
Well, man, I have been playing a ton of Monster Hunter because Monster Hunter World. I actually named my Palico Bradford, so that's a thing.
Yep.
But this Saturday, if you guys want to see some Hunt Showdown Alpha gameplay, definitely tune in. Bradford and I, in lieu of the regular PUBG live stream, for this week, we're going to be playing Hunt Showdown same time. But that's what I've been looking at these couple of screenshots that you can see here, but I tweeted out some screenshots that I've got on here. It's CryEngine. It's my favorite engine. CryEngine is a complete beast. It's like ridiculously pretty, even in its just technical alpha form. I'm expecting issues because, again, this is a technical alpha. That's why it exists. But yeah, it should be interesting. It's a kind of a co-op. It's a 2 versus 2 versus 2 versus 2 kind of game in this map. But yeah, no, honestly, if you guys are interested in the gameplay, definitely feel free to check out our stream, because we're gonna be kind of learning alongside you guys. I know a little bit about the gameplay and what it is, but obviously I haven't had a chance to delve too much into it yet. I just want to kind of pop in there and check out the visuals and the performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna be super fun. So that's a game that I'm looking forward to playing on Saturday at 10 p.m.
It does look
Eastern
pretty good.
time.
Yeah. I'm gonna check it out because
for sure, man.
This game was offered to me to try out too, and I passed on it because I didn't think that. I mean, there's so much hunting going on lately, but I really wanted to see whether or not it would be something that I'd be into. And after seeing some of your screenshots, I mean, it does look pretty amazing. So I'm going to be upgrading my PC pretty soon, and I'm going to test it with some stuff. So so that's pretty awesome. So tomorrow night at what time?
Yeah, so Bradford and I will be streaming tomorrow night, that's Saturday night, at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on the MMORPG Twitch, Mixer, whatever, and also the GameSpace YouTube channel. So if you guys want to follow those two Twitter channels or Twitter handles, you should be notified when we go live, or just subscribe to those channels. But yeah, it should be fun.
Awesome. Next on our list, Dame. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. I am currently reviewing Dissidia Final Fantasy NT, and having a blast with that. I wrote a first impressions piece for GameSpace this week, so you can find that there. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around the game and get a good review written over the weekend here, before things go too crazy, go nuts. But the thing that I really love about it is just that it brings together a bunch of heroes and villains from across the Final Fantasy franchise, and I absolutely love the franchise. I have some incredible memories of and some very great, again, going back to that whole conversation of art, like there's some great art in those games. But gorgeous game. It's awesome to be able to see those characters kind of come to life and interact with each other, and then to be able to kind of create so it's like a 3v3 brawler style game.
Yeah, so
yeah, so it's a 3v3 brawler style game. There are two major game modes within it. There's like kind of your straight out brawl, and then there's a core mode. The brawl mode gives you like a shared health pool for your team, and so the first team to get 3 knockouts wins the round. And then the core mechanic is a little bit more of like, it's kind of a mixture of like brawler meets MOBA in a weird sort of way. Like each team has a core that they have to protect and one they have to assault. And the first, team to destroy the other's core wins. Well, you can't attack a core if there's somebody within like a specific radius of the core itself. So it's a pretty interesting gameplay. And it's not strictly button mashing. I mean, it certainly has a fair amount of button mashery to it. But there's both a bravery and health system that are two resources in the game that you're constantly like building and using and attacking to be able to whittle your opponents down and stuff like that. So by and large, I'm enjoying the game. But there are some things that I'm not 100% keen on in it, like camera control right now, that get a little bit wonky on you. But I've written about that a little bit in my first impressions, and we'll be writing more about that in my review.
Well, I'll be looking forward to it. So I guess the big question, the most important question, playable chocobos or...
I wish, that, and I'll tell you, that is one of the complaints that I have about the game. And I realize that there's a limitation to how many characters that you can put within a game. But it seems like they limited the roster to like the main protagonist and main antagonist of the games, which is unfortunate because there's a rich catalog of characters throughout the
what
the
a
franchise.
missed opportunity to have Moogle fights.
Right. Well, here's the thing though, is that there is a Moogle in the game, and she's annoying. Actually, one of the recommendations that I'm going to give in my review and gave in the preview is, as soon as you can, turn Moogle notifications off. because I swear if I hear one more Koopo, I'm going to put my fist to the screen.
Gamer problems, man.
Yes,
if I hear
problem.
one more Koopo, I'm done. If I hear one more Koopo, I'm going to break this $300 monitor.
Right.
So I don't have any media for you, Chris, but what are you into this week?
I've been playing a selection of stuff. I was playing the new Wolfenstein, the
Good man.
Colossus, which is just excellent. I kind of burned through the New Order pretty fast. I set it to easy just because I wanted to get through the story and be ready. I way missed the launch date, obviously, but I really like those games. They are just very, very good. Over on the Xbox, I've been trying a bunch of stuff. Monster Hunter World is just awesome. And interestingly, right now I actually have the Xbox One X hooked up to my 1080p TV. Surprisingly good. That super sampling really makes a difference. I'm really enjoying it there. Obviously better on 4K HDR, of course. But I was impressed by the improvements there. And I didn't think I'd be saying this, but I've been actually enjoying Call of Duty again, which I thought I was done with that whole series. I hadn't played it in a long time, but there's something about just the way that the Xbox controller feels in your hand that makes it really nice for shooters.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been having a lot more fun with it. And on the PlayStation 4, I just wasn't for a long time. And it sounds kind of dumb to say a controller would make that kind of difference. It really does make the difference.
It does. Yep, controller can change everything. But the thing is that it also becomes kind of an issue when you switch back and forth between controllers. I kind of have some controller problems now whenever because I actually play certain games depending on if I'm on my desktop or my laptop. I'll play with different controllers. The same game with different controllers can just really mess you up. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that it brought you. Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah, you know the thing that was happening.
No, I'm saying I agree with you because swapping back between this controller and this controller, there's certain games I prefer this over this. Yeah. And when you swap back and forth, sometimes it takes you a second to feel out the controller again. So I completely get what you're saying.
But your controllers are all fancy looking. You just got the regular stock controllers. You got white ones and shiny stuff.
I don't know why the light's blinking on this.
What is that? I mean,
this one?
No, well, I know what they are, but I mean,
which version is this?
What version?
That's the Elite, right?
Yeah, this is the Elite controller. I got this last a year ago, I think, last January or so, 2 years. I can't remember.
What, you guys have a white PlayStation or something?
No, I don't have a white PlayStation. I just have the white controller because I like the way it looks.
Okay.
I do.
You have the white PlayStation.
I do.
Okay, because whenever I bought my Pro, it just came with a black one, so I was like, whatever.
I sadly don't have a Pro, so them's the breaks.
They don't give you anything shiny for it. That's all I wanted. All I wanted was shininess, and they gave me.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I'll trade you my white controller for your PS Pro.
Can you see this? Look, RGB, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, hold that closer.
I can't because I'm tethered. That's the downside.
Dude, what is that's? No way.
This is Razer's take on the Elite controller. So it has the extra triggers on the back of it and stuff. Yeah, but you can control the RGB lighting, swap out the thumbsticks and the D-pad and stuff. It's a really nice controller. My son is enamored with this though, the RGB.
How much was that, or was that?
Oh, God, way too expensive. I think it was $250.
$250?
I think. Let me look.
I think it's $150 for the regular.
When I bought the Elite,
let me check that. It's called the Razer Wolverine.
When I bought the Elite, it was $150, but I know they've lowered the price of this because they are most likely going to release a Elite version 2.0 this year. So I think they dropped the price, but even originally this was $150. That's way less than whatever the $200.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It was $160. $160.
Oh, okay.
So that's substantially less, but still really expensive. Huh? Well, they're thinking behind it has to do with latency and stuff, and it makes a certain amount of sense. Although wireless controllers are kind of a given now, so I don't know. I wish it was wireless.
It's easier. I like to play wired when I can, but it just I also like having the freedom of taking the controller wherever.
So here's the thing. It has those RGB lights, and RGB takes a good amount of power for a wireless device.
Yeah.
I'm guessing probably a more practical reason is so it doesn't wear down the battery super fast to have that on there. I mean, you can turn it off. There's an app you can get on the Xbox, but
then what was the point of buying the controller if you're just going to turn it off?
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of the trade-off that you have there. I really like it, though. You know what's cool, though? What I'm really liking about this is I'd spent a good amount of time just playing PC games, probably around a year with occasional trips over to the PS4, and I got really bad at using the PlayStation 4 controller. I mean, after using a mouse, it just felt so precise. And I have always been a fan of kind of the offset joysticks on the Xbox controller. It just has helped me be more precise. And I think that's another reason why I'm getting back into shooters on it, is because I feel like I'm overcoming this thing that was making me just not want to play consoles before. So it's kind of a cool thing. But, you know, their take on the Elite controller, it really does make a difference. I mean, when I first saw the Elite, I didn't think much of it, honestly, other than just, wow, that's an expensive controller. But after using this controller, it really is. And having the swappable thumbsticks, like it really does make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I guess the only question that we really need answered now is, come on, right thumbstick, is it inverted? Is that how you do it? Or
nope.
Oh,
are you a madman?
I invert my thumbsticks. That's because I'm old school.
The answer is yes, you are a madman.
That's not a madman. That's being old school. That's the way that it was before.
Dude, you want to talk about old school? So, like, I agree with you. Inverted is totally old school. But so I can't play shooters with a controller anymore. I can't. But when I did, and even when I like sometimes do, like at my friend's place, I have to swap the sticks to the legacy control scheme. I have to. So. And I completely blame GoldenEye 64 for that because of the C buttons.
That's what it does, man.
Yeah, but I've used the legacy control scheme ever since GoldenEye 64, and I think like I'm the only one of my friends I know that uses legacy sticks. So if you use legacy sticks, let me know because we're a dying breed, man.
And I tried to go back and play GoldenEye 64. It is so hard to play that game with those C buttons now. Yeah. It's like, how did I ever do this?
Well, because when we were playing it in our head, we were like, this is the greatest game in the world.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that was before dual analog, right? So
yeah.
But it was amazing. It was an amazing game. What am I playing? I already told you guys what I'm playing, but here's a little video of me playing it poorly. So this is what I was talking about. It kind of has like a feel of like a little bit Dynasty Warriors, but also it's Mount and Blade, basically. You can get on one of these horses, ride around, hit people with a big long axe, which is what I chose, which was the worst choice for a beginner. But that's how I roll. And I think this is from the match that I actually won. For those of you who are just listening and can't see it, basically it's just me running around and swinging at big groups of people and attacking them. But in the actual gameplay of like most of the matches, these are you have objectives for each match, and most of them are just like don't die, protect the villagers. But I mean, so many times if you were looking for me, just look for the guy eating dirt, because guys, there's so much dirt that I was eating, and I just like I was so bad at this game, but which is really sad because I'm really good at Mount and Blade. It's just a different type of gameplay. You have to be able to control your squad. You have to be able to tell them what to do. You can have them protect you, like they can build like a circle around you. Overall, I just saw myself roll there. I probably used that maybe like once. I had no idea what I was doing. And in this video, my horse is dead. Horses, I basically would just kill them immediately. Overall, it was
not nice.
Well, because like I'm used to Mount and Blade, And in Mountain Blade, if you have a horse, you're pretty much invincible if you know how to play him right. That's not the case here. They just destroy your horse so quickly. But
well, they need glue somehow.
Yeah. Ultimately,
I'm sorry.
Well, no,
Chris, I was going to go there, so
yeah. But yeah, I really like the game, and even though I was only like level 5 to level 7, and everyone I was playing with was level 35 plus, I mean, you know, a dirt nap here and there is understandable considering. But it's a fun game, and I'm going to keep playing it, and I'm going to stream it a few times. So if you guys are out there, you want to see me eat dirt, definitely, you know, hop on in and take a look. It'll be streaming on the MMORPG channels as well as my personal channel, Gaming with Dexum, on YouTube and now on Twitch. So, oh, and Mixer also. But that's plugs for me. Talking about plugs for you guys also. Anything you're watching, anything that you've seen you want to tell anyone about? Anything you watched this week?
Watch the Grand Tour on Amazon Prime. I'm going to keep saying that every single time I'm on the show, because watch the Grand Tour on Amazon Prime.
I haven't got around to that yet. Not quite yet.
Is Altered Carbon out today?
Yeah.
It is. Oh, dude, I'm watching that tonight.
So, okay, what is that?
So it's like I think it's like a detective story, but it's set in a future where when you die, you just download your consciousness into a new body. Mm. So
it sounds very Philip K. Dick.
Yeah, I think the idea is, though, it's like really hard to get away with murder, of course, because people are just going into new bodies. So there's a murder, and this guy doesn't remember a period before he died, and they're trying to figure out who actually killed him. Now, my question is, why does it matter? Because he's still there, you know. Like, so it seems really cool, though, this kind of dystopian, far-flung future. And I guess the book was really highly regarded.
Well, that's definitely something to check out. I saw that it was available. I have not watched it yet. So
Altered Carbon, that's what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to look that up and add it to my list. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
It's a pretty hyped up Netflix release for sure.
Dame, are you watching anything?
Just watching the snowfall.
Well, there's a lot of that going around, except here because I'm in Texas and no more snow for us, hopefully.
Dude, please, no more snow. Please. Oh my God.
No, this week has actually been kind of a crazy week for me. I've been out of town at some conferences and stuff like that, so not really the getting gaming in has been I want to say it's been a chore, but it's been a feat in and of itself.
It's been a challenge, let's say.
It's been a challenge. There you go.
Challenge. Yeah, understandable. Well, I'm not watching anything in particular. I am watching. I'm watching an anime, Black Clover. I've been watching that over the course of its season. It's pretty good. This past one was also pretty good. It's basic run-of-the-mill stuff, you know, a rags to riches kind of story. You gotta love those. But in terms of anime, it's good. I mean, I enjoy it. If you're into that, anyone out there, you know, it's not one of those you know, overly graphic or anything like that. So it's definitely suitable for everyone. It's always got like the undertone of, you know, you can do anything if you believe and never stop trying, kind of thing. But, you know, I'm a sucker for those kind of animes. So
it's reskinned Pokemon.
Basically, but you just don't catch them all. Pretty much. Magical tomes and, you know, magic and hey and whatever. So that's what I'm watching, and you can't stop me. So don't try. But that's it for what I'm watching. Anything else you guys want to plug before we sign off for the evening?
I was pulling up my calendar thing. Bradford has a graphics card review.
Yeah.
The new XFX RX 570, 8GB going up on Tuesday.
Ooh,
you have a review, Stephen, going up on Saturday for the typewriter keyboard.
Oh yes, that's you guys want to hear it? It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, actually I do.
Okay, here we go. Let me find something I can type on. You guys hear that?
Yeah.
Is that the clicky one or is that the
This
clacky
is the clicky one.
Ah, that's different.
I can't hear it as much because I'm wearing these, but whenever I'm not hearing these, I can't stand it.
It almost sounds like a red switch. I don't know from through like the mic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like to me too.
It's tough. It's tough because you could actually hear the second click pretty good if you're here. But I mean, also you have to understand that my mic's pointing away from it and
yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, I guess if we're plugging stuff, like I said, I'm streaming Hunt Showdown, but I'm also going to be writing my impressions piece of that, following my gameplay experience with that. So that's going to go up at some point whenever I have enough time to get my hands on there and get enough experience with that. So
awesome.
Should be interesting. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I guess I should also plug. I now have a Sunday stream. So Sunday nights at 9 o'clock is usually my stream time. So this week I have no idea what I'm going to be playing. I guess maybe I'll be playing Conqueror's Blade, but I also might be playing Next Up Hero because I'm really digging that game too. So I'll be playing something. So if you guys are around, stop on by. I'm going to be checking out Shanks tomorrow because I want to see what that game's all about.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, if you want to... So that's a 10 p.m. Eastern on the MMORPG Twitch channel. Sorry?
So 9 my time. 9 Central is whenever I...
Yeah, it's 9 our time, the right time zone.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, man. I mean, I know you want to check it out. If you want to honestly just even hop into the Discord and just like hang out with us and talk to us in real time as we're playing, please feel more than free to do that. But yeah, it should be good. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this game actually is in action. I've been trying to follow it for some time now, so pretty interested in it.
Awesome.
Dude, before we go, Hunt Showdown has scary monster things chasing you, right?
Yes, but it's in a it's almost in like a gothic punk setting. It's like, I don't know how else to describe it, but it's in like this super gothic atmosphere, and it is such an atmospheric game, at least the little I played of it. But yeah, I wouldn't even call them zombies. They're like abomination, like monstrosity things.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at screenshots. It's bothering me already.
I just need to know. I mean, I know I'm gonna see it all whenever we play, but you mentioned that it's kind of like a co-op 2 versus 2 versus 2 thing. But is it
you're hunting monsters?
You're hunting monsters.
Yes. So you're
not playing against other players.
Well, no.
Or you
well, yeah, yes and no. So the entire premise of the game, and this is what's kind of interesting to me, is that you guys are dumped in a map. There is one major kind of supernatural like boss monster that you need to find, and the way you do this is by following clues. And you have to kind of traverse your way through the map. But the other thing is there are other teams looking for that same monster. And so not only are you trying to combat against the monster, you're also trying to combat against like these other teams. So there's absolutely potential for griefing in there, and I hope it doesn't happen. But that's what's interesting, I think, is you're hunting the supernatural beast, but also against other players. So I'm curious to see how that's going to actually play out.
Do the abominations go after you? Are they hunting you too?
No, because the zombie thingies, they're not hunting you, but like if you get close, they'll chase you. Yeah.
See, so here's the thing. I have this game looks awesome, and I will probably buy it, but I don't want to be reckless because do you remember that game, Daylight?
Dying Light?
Dying Light, yeah. Dying Light.
Dying Light was crap. I'm just going to put that out there.
Well, so that aside, right, they have this thing where at nighttime, these like high-powered zombie things would come out, and they would go after you. That game stressed me the heck out, man. Like, to the point where I didn't want to play it. Honest to God, because I was caught after dark and these things go after you and it's this really intense music and your guy starts breathing really heavy and then I'm breathing really heavy. That is a kind of experience I don't like. And it's weird because I enjoy scary things, not so much movies, but books. I should be really into that. but it's just super stressful.
Yeah, so Hunt Showdown is not like that because the lighting in Dying Light, if you remember, it had a dynamic day-night cycle.
Yeah. Yep.
Hunt Showdown is not like that. They have static maps where you can pick daytime or nighttime, but the zombies and monsters themselves don't necessarily behave different. You might have different monsters, but they're not gonna all of a sudden transform and start chasing you all over the place. It's not like Dying Light.
Well, that's good. I'm gonna have to watch your stream.
Yeah,
I'm
for
really
sure, man.
curious
Check it
about
out. Yeah, I know a lot of people are curious about this game, but you know, it should be fun. We'll figure it out together tomorrow night. It's gonna be fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess that's it for this evening. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week at 9-ish.
Ish.
Night.
Thanks everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
See yas.